Evening all. Well, it's been quite a while since I've done a piece to camera, but this is kind of today I found out, and it's such an interesting story that I thought I'd share it with you. Now, okay, you're probably guessing from the title. What do you want about the greatest song by the greatest song you've never heard of by a band that didn't actually exist? What's all this about? Well, I'll tell you a story. And there is a song, and it's called I Keep Singing the Same Old Song. And officially, it's by a band called Heavy Jelly. But the thing is, I Keep Singing the Same Old Song is the only song Heavy Jelly ever recorded. And it was never released as a single. It's an 8.5 minute long rock song from 1969. It was released in January 1969, but not as a single. And it's a fantastic song. It's if you like that kind of late 60s going into early 70s hard rock, a little bit progressive, a little bit psychedelic. And I'm talking it's a little bit like Led Zeppelin, early Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep. It borrows a lot kind of from I don't know if it borrows, all these bands came up at the same time, but so I'm going Led Zeppelin, early Black Sabbath, Uriah Heep, just English hard rock bands, and it's a really good song. And so, who are Heavy Jelly, and why is this their only recording? Well, the story is they weren't originally called Heavy Jelly. They were originally called, I'm going to just look this up for a second, they were called Skip Bifferty. That was their original name. So they began in 1966 in Newcastle upon Tyne, and they started. They were getting quite popular. Now the lead singer, a guy called Alan Hull, left Skip Bifferty to found the folk rock group Lindisfarne. Was it Fog on the Tyne? And the rest of the band, they got in a new singer called Graham Bell, and they were Skip Bifferty, and they got noticed. This was late 66 going into 67. They got noticed by RCA, and they got a manager. That manager turned out to be he became the father of Sharon Osbourne. So Sharon Osbourne's dad managing this band on behalf of the record company RCA. And they released an album under their name, Skip Bifferty, in I think early 68. And they were supporting The Who. The Who liked them. They had the Small Faces recorded some of Skip Bifferty's songs, and also wrote songs for Skip Bifferty as well to record. So Skip Bifferty looked like they were going to be the next big thing going into late 1968 and going into 1969. And this is around about the time that Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath and Uriah Heep were emerging. So they would have been yet another of these big, powerful British hard rock bands from that era. But something went wrong. And what happened was that the manager and RCA Records fell out with Skip Bifferty. They terminated their recording contract and basically stopped them from touring. It was quite an acrimonious split. But Skip Bifferty had this song that they had written called I Keep Singing the Same Old Song, and they really wanted to record it. So in December 1968, I went into the recording studio to cut this song, 8.5 minute long song. And I think the B-side was something they recorded earlier as Skip Bifferty that was just a kind of discard. But they changed their name to Heavy Jelly to record this song. And they went to Island Records. Wasn't that well known at the time. Island Records, I believe, was founded by Chris Blackwell, who... Island Records in the 60s had the basically two types of music. It was either reggae and ska, because I think his first act, Chris Blackwell, released on Island Records was Millie's My Boy Lollipop. Chris Blackwell's an interesting character as well. He was a Anglo-Jamaican, white Anglo-Jamaican. He worked on Dr. No. He was responsible for finding locations and also local bands. So there's a band in Doctor No that sing "Jump Up, Jump Up," in the club, and Chris Blackwell found that group, put them into the film. He recommended them to the film. So, and then back in London, he set up Island Records, named after the place where he grew up in, Jamaica. And Island Records either had ska reggae singers or they had hard rock bands. There's no in between. So Skip Bifferty changed the name to Heavy Jelly, went to Island Records, recorded I Keep Singing the Same Old Song, and they couldn't release it as a single. So it went on an Island Records sample album. Now, these sample albums were by up-and-coming record labels, will put out an album of all their new signings, like a song from all the bands that they were trying to promote. And these would go around to radio stations, record shops, be interested in our product, listen to these bands, see which ones you like. So I Keep Singing the Same Old Song ended up on an Island Record sampler album called Nice Enough to Eat. And on this album, there's like King Crimson, Spooky Tooth, just all these other bands you may have heard of if you're into music from that era. But by far the most famous band on this sampler album is King Crimson. And so Heavy Jelly got onto this album. Anyway, the album got put out, and RCA and their ex-manager got wind and said, "That is not Heavy Jelly, that is Skip Bifferty." And they ordered, the band didn't have a recording contract, and they shouldn't have been allowed to release anything for sale. So RCA stepped in and ordered the band to break up. And that's what happened. The band were told they couldn't perform together as either Skip Bifferty, as Heavy Jelly, or any other name. They actually were prevented from being a band because of the terms of these really strict contracts. So the band went their separate ways. But confusingly, also in January 1969, when this song snuck out onto a Island Record taster demo album, there was another band called Heavy Jelly that started at the same time, which had Jackie Lomax and Ainsley Dunbar, sort of fairly well-known musicians of the time. And so that added to the confusion that there was another Heavy Jelly group out there. So a sad story. Well, it does have one silver lining, is that the band members of Skip Bifferty actually went on to other things and had successful recording careers or music careers. So Graham Bell formed a group called Bell and Ark, who did some things, and they in turn ended up appearing on loads of people's albums, like Van Morrison, The Clash. They played on some Clash albums and things like that. The other half of the band went off and became the Blockheads of Ian Dury and the Blockheads fame. So the bass player went off to do work with Van Morrison and the Clash and Ark and Bell. And so it was Ian Dury, Chaz Jankel, and the rest of Skip Bifferty, Heavy Jelly. And so individually, the Skip Bifferty band members did have successful musical careers eventually, but the actual awesomeness of this band was terminated, and we never got to see whether they could have gone on to into the 70s and stood alongside the ranks of, say, Led Zeppelin or Deep Purple or any other sort of major British rock bands of the 70s. But I do recommend you go. It's on YouTube, and occasionally I Keep Singing the Same Old Song crops up on these compilation albums, the beginnings of prog rock compilation albums. It's on one called And the Heavens Cried, which is an album I thoroughly recommend. If you like your prog rock, but you want to expand your knowledge of the genre, you want to say, oh, okay, I'm done, yes, King Crimson, Genesis and all that. I want to go deeper into and learn about all these other bands. So, And the Heavens Cried is a great album. Copies of Nice Enough to Eat are so rare, you'd be paying through your nose for them. But occasionally, I keep singing the same old song, will crop up on these psychedelic or prog rock compilation albums. So keep a lookout for that. I hope you like the song. I think it's really good. I think it's really stomping. It's got a kind of very good raw quality about it, and it's a shame we never got to see Skip Bifferty in full cry. But at least their legacy lives on in other bands. Anyway, until next time, I'll see you later.